my life. They come in, work for me. Kimberly worked for me for several companies. Now she works for Intel. But people come in and out of your life. I've fired several people, and they're back working for me again. So it's like you got to sort of assess this plateau where you're going to get, how you're going to get your idea off the ground, and what resources you're going to do to use it. But all I wanted to give you tonight was sort of an overview and sort of the pitfalls of being an entrepreneur and some of the things you want to look for. And basically, now I'm open to answer any questions. Yes.
So I've not been in quite the same position you have been, but in moving on, leading a team, let's just say,
yes.
You talk about the exit strategy and moving on to the next thing. There's one aspect of which is kind of your personal investment. It's your baby. You started it. How do you let go?
Right.
But there's another aspect which at least in my personal experience, is difficult, if not more difficult, which is letting go of those relationships and the other people that have become part of
your life.
And you've identified this team that works together very closely,
right.
And when the founder or the senior member of that team leaves, it's like the direction for the whole team falls apart.
Right.
Or it can fall apart.
Right, it does. And that's your responsibility to make sure, if you're going to leave, that somehow you put in place a plan to migrate that out. Because the other side of it, probably, that team should leave anyway too. I mean, probably, in some cases, maybe not. In some cases, maybe. But then you're reliable and responsible to make sure that as you leave, you keep them in good shape while you're leaving.
But you have no control because, like in the case of Apple, whatever, you're out.
Right.
You have no control at that point.
I didn't have any control, but I went back to all my team and told them what was going on. I mean, I told them the conflicts and the issues and where the company was going, and I met with everybody one-on-one over time to sort of mentor them through that process, because that's the other part. That was my responsibility. The other part of being a leader, of being part of this responsibility, of being sort of the leader or whatever you're part of it, is there's this mentor part of it. You have to make sure you move people along and help them in the process of going along. Because that's it. I agree with it. I mean, Migo, now the good thing about Migo at the time, most of my team the original team was pretty well gone. They'd already seen the light and started to go off. And I'd already told them the light. So I said, guys and girls, I'm probably going to be leaving some period of time. But it was too late. I should have done that a lot earlier. But even Apple, I should have, when Steve left, I should have left. I mean, I was part of the great thing about Apple culture, which is also part of my culture, it was run by ideas. Before Scully arrived, nobody even knew what the stock price was. It was run by ideas. Who has a good idea? That's what we're here for. It's about ideas. It wasn't run by structure, and that's when that all changed. It all became, what's the stock price? How do we move the price of stock up? All this stuff, and the whole idea factory sort of died in the process. Yes?
When you left IBM,
yes.
how did you leave IBM on kind of good standings?
I walked in and said I resigned. No, well, actually, IBM at the time I left at IBM. I've been at IBM for 9 years, and typically at IBM, anybody goes 9 years, they stay there for life. And the big change to that was Al Shugart. Al Shugart left. Al Shugart took 11 people, and they called him the Dirty Dozen. So he basically set up. It was the beginning of the whole Silicon Valley change, where IBM now was becoming a place where people would leave from. You have that. So now I went to IBM and said, hey, I'm not happy. I gave an option. I said, I'm very interested in international business. If you'll send me to the Paris headquarters for 2 years, I'll agree to come back to Armonk. So they wanted me to go to Armonk, New York. I didn't want to leave California. So I said, I'll make a deal. Send me to Paris for 2 years, and I'll come back to Armonk, and then let me learn the international part of the business. And they screwed around, didn't do anything for a while, nothing ever happened. So I said, I have another job, and I left. I actually left IBM, and it was not really a big misunderstanding, but I gave an option, and they just didn't do it. So I think I don't know if I had it up there, but the moment in time I left IBM was interesting, because I was at a high-level executive conference in New York, and the Guggenheimer Estate, which IBM owned, is a training center. And the chairman of the board was having dinner with him, and I was frustrated because I felt a lot of things IBM was getting slowed down. I had already in my mind thought about the personal computer, all about moving computing to the desktop, and I was frustrated at IBM. And also I worked on the BART systems. I worked on the fair transaction systems. I was frustrated that IBM refused to put their name on it, and they also, out of that, we invented the ATM system. So you see today around, you go to your bank, all that technology came out of the stuff we're doing at IBM. They didn't want to get in that business. They just wanted to license the technology. Didn't want their name out there to be associated with any problems. And so I was frustrated. And the chair of the board said to me, well, you have to look at IBM as like a super tank. It takes 22 miles to stop it and 60 miles to turn it. To my mind, I went, I don't want to be on a super tanker, I want to be on a sloop. It's like, it's funny because just Obama used that same analogy about a month ago. I had to laugh when he said it, but it's like, that was a moment in time that hit me and said, no, I don't want to be on a super tanker. But I didn't really understand myself at that time. I mean, I didn't really understand that I can't work for anybody yet. I mean, I finally got that when I got into the sort of the Apple syndrome, but